Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. Looking back, I should have noticed something was going on weeks earlier. For over 7 weeks, my wife Jennifer had been especially attentive to me. She started making elaborate breakfasts instead of the usual toast and coffee. She prepared my favorite dinners, complete with wine service. After dinner, she would change into something beautiful and become particularly affectionate before we retired for the evening. In our 24-year marriage, I had never questioned these changes. I happily accepted them as part of our new normal since our youngest child left for college just a few months ago. I wanted to do more for Jen too. I made sure to be home every evening no later than 5 o'clock. I started taking her to nice restaurants around Fort Wayne. We went to performances at the Arts United Center for the first time in months. We went dancing at the Grand Wayne Convention Center events. I brought her flowers. I was ready to embrace the benefits of empty nest life. My name is Michael Harrison. My wife Jennifer, Jen to everyone, and I had been together for almost a quarter of a century. Like any marriage, we'd had our ups and downs, but the highs far outweighed the difficulties. I was content with life here in northeastern Indiana. I own Harrison Toy Manufacturing, a successful mid-sized company that employs about 80 people in our facility on the south side of Fort Wayne. Over the years, I've become proficient in all aspects of the business: product development, quality control, supplier negotiations, staff management, marketing strategies, and retail partnerships. We specialize in educational toys and have built strong relationships with retailers throughout the Midwest. I take great pride in bringing joy to children through the toys we create. Jen is an incredibly beautiful woman, just turned 45. We're both in excellent shape thanks to good genetics, regular walks along the River Greenway, and careful attention to our health. People often say we make a striking couple at community events around Allen County. Since returning to work after our youngest started kindergarten, Jen has been working as a real estate agent for Thompson Properties, a well-established firm that's been serving Fort Wayne families for over 30 years. The company operates out of a renovated Victorian house on West Berry Street that William Thompson converted into offices. Over the years, Jen has worked her way up to become a reliable residential sales agent, focusing on homes in the Aboite and Southwest Fort Wayne markets. Her steady performance and sincere care for clients has earned her respect among her colleagues. My life changed dramatically on a Wednesday evening last week. I arrived home as usual around 5 o'clock to our house in the Covington Woods subdivision. Jen was busy in the kitchen preparing dinner. Over the past few weeks, she'd been cooking meals that were more elaborate and thoughtful than anything we'd had since before the kids grew up. I kissed the back of her head as I entered the kitchen. Usually, Jen would turn around at this point and give me a proper kiss, but this time she didn't. "I don't deserve the amazing attention I've been getting for the last 2 months," I said lightly. "What's the occasion?" "Nothing special," she replied, but never looked away from her work on the counter. "I'm just glad my husband's home." It felt distant, as if she didn't want to look at me, even for the few seconds it would take to turn around and greet me properly. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "You seem preoccupied." "No, nothing at all," she replied quickly. "Go change, and when you come down, you'll have a glass of your favorite wine." Something felt off. Rather than sharing a tender moment, she seemed eager to hurry me out of the kitchen. I brushed off the feeling and went upstairs. After changing into comfortable khakis and a casual sweater, I returned to find dinner ready. It wasn't extravagant, but Jen had clearly put extra effort into making it special. She'd been doing this for months. Dinner consisted of a fresh salad, followed by herb-crusted salmon with wild rice and asparagus. As we clinked glasses, Jen said, "You know I love you, don't you?" It sounded different from the usual exchange of, "I love you," followed by my automatic, "I love you too." After dinner, we cleared the table together. Jen put away the leftovers while I loaded the dishwasher. As I was finishing up, she said she was going upstairs to change into something more comfortable. When I walked from the kitchen into the living room, the lights were dimmed and Jen was waiting for me, looking beautiful in an elegant silk robe. I didn't hesitate to join her on the sofa. What followed was tender and passionate. She seemed especially responsive that evening, and I was reminded of the intimacy we'd rekindled over recent weeks. I'm glad we've rediscovered some of the passion we'd lost over the years, I said afterward, holding her close. Our conversation drifted from how good she looked approaching 45 to how well we'd both maintained ourselves. You could easily pass for 35, I told her. I was nearly asleep when Jen spoke quietly. Honey, I need to talk to you about something. About what? I answered drowsily. First, she began. You know how much I love you, don't you? Yes, and I love you just as much. Michael, she said so quietly I could barely hear her. This Friday I made plans for Saturday evening with a man from my office. Her announcement took several seconds to register. When it did, I sat up and looked directly into her eyes. What are you talking about? She tried to guide my head back to where it had been resting, but I resisted. What exactly are you saying? I repeated. It won't affect how we feel about each other. I'll still love you and you'll still love me. Are you serious? Is this some kind of joke? No, Michael, it's not a joke. I have a date Saturday with a man, a development consultant from out of town who's been working with our office. We're going to have dinner and dancing and then go to his hotel. I'll spend the night with him and come home late Sunday morning. So you're planning to spend all Saturday night and Sunday morning with some guy? Please don't put it that way. Sounds so crude. He's a wonderful person. I really care about him. I was now fully awake and listening carefully. I started getting dressed, making it clear our intimate time was over. Please, Michael, don't be like that. I still love only you, and you still love me. It will only be this one time, and then it will all be over. In a week, we'll be exactly as we are now, and you'll be able to move past this. I don't think so, Jen, I said sharply. Who is this Prince Charming? Just when things are going so well for us, why do you want to completely destroy our marriage? Jen, now putting on her robe, said, I don't want to tell you his name because it's not important for you to know, and I don't want you confronting him. How long has this been going on? I asked. It's not an affair. We've barely touched each other. What do you mean by barely touched? Holding hands? Hugging? Kissing? Jen didn't answer, which led me to believe it had progressed further than she was willing to admit. He was brought in about 6 months ago from a consulting firm in Chicago to help us with a large residential development project in the Aboite area. Due to its complexity, I and several other agents have been working with him on market research and sales strategies. I've been the primary liaison with him because of my experience in that market. Over time, we became very close. 2 months ago, he told me he had strong feelings for me and wanted to be with me. I wasn't about to sneak off to some cheap motel or stay late at work for an encounter in the office. Our connection was special and too valuable for that kind of cheap liaison. We wanted a special evening that would be just for us. He asked if I could come up with an excuse to get away for the weekend, or at least for one night. I told him I doubted I could create an excuse that would cover such a long period. Besides, I said, I really don't want to lie to my husband. He asked if my husband would be willing, or could be persuaded, to allow us to be together for an evening or weekend. I told him I know how deeply you love me, but I wasn't sure if you would divorce me over a one-time encounter. I didn't think so, especially if you knew it was just a single episode that would never happen again. But I couldn't be certain. Why would you want to do this to us, Jen? We have everything anyone could want in a marriage. We love each other, we have great kids, no financial problems, and our health is good. Why? He convinced me that I was missing something. You're the only man I've ever been with. I feel like I need to experience more. He showed me there could be more. This will make me complete. Besides, he cares about me, and I have feelings for him too. This isn't some sordid affair. But Jen, I protested. We have such a wonderful relationship. You're the only woman I've ever been with, and I'm the only man you've ever been with. You don't understand, Michael. I need this. I want this. I want him. Why do you need this? He's an incredibly handsome man who's much younger than me but finds me irresistible. I'm drawn to him powerfully. I just need to have him at least once. Otherwise, I'll never be satisfied again. He feels the same way. Please, darling, let me do this, and then I'll be yours forever. I will never agree to this. It will destroy us and our marriage. No, it won't, darling. Let me do this, and I'll be the most wonderful wife you could imagine. I'll take care of everything, cooking, household management, all of it. I'll be the best partner you could dream of. You can do anything you want with me, anytime. I'll treat you like a king for the rest of your life, and I'll never touch another man again. I promise. Except I'll have a wife who betrayed me, I replied. For a man, this is the ultimate expression of disrespect. You're going to have to accept this, Michael. I'm going to do this. I need to get this out of my system. It won't change anything between us. I'll still love you, and you'll still love me. So that's why you've been so attentive and affectionate for the last 2 months. It had nothing to do with us becoming empty nesters. You thought if you were extra loving, I'd be less likely to leave you over this one-time encounter and more likely to agree to your plans. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Jen remained adamant despite all my arguments and protests. Her decision was made, and she had no intention of changing it. She would have to face whatever consequences might come. I wasn't going to beg. I went up to the master bedroom, gathered clothes for the next day and some toiletries, and moved into the guest room. Our house had a guest bedroom with its own small bathroom. Jen intercepted me as I was moving my things. Please don't be like this, Michael. Nothing will change. I know you're upset right now, but it will all be over by Sunday afternoon, and we can be ourselves again. I'm not just upset, I said very calmly but firmly. If you do this, we'll never be able to be ourselves again. I closed the guest bedroom door without another word. Left alone with my thoughts, I considered all the obvious alternatives. Divorce, separation, physically preventing her from going, calling her parents, calling our kids. But I couldn't divorce her. Despite her temporary confusion, I still loved her deeply. I rejected the other obvious options too. I had no intention of leaving my own home. She might decide to call off her plans if family members intervened, but that would mean it was due to outside pressure. If she decided against it, she would have to make that decision herself, based on the merits of our marriage. It was Thursday evening. No doubt Jen had waited until almost the last moment to announce her plans. This limited the time she had to deal with an angry husband and limited my time to convince her this was a terrible idea. I was scared of losing my wife. She said she had feelings for this guy. Perhaps now that the children had left home, she might consider leaving me for him. The thought would completely break my heart. Maybe I could interfere with her plans somehow. Perhaps I could prevent her date from happening at all. This consultant would be gone before a backup arrangement could be made, and I'd have time to make it clear to her the risks she was taking. Before falling asleep late Thursday night, I formulated a plan. Since I couldn't talk Jen out of her arrangement with this man, perhaps her employer could. I knew that Thompson Properties, like most small businesses, would be concerned about relationships that might affect workplace dynamics. If Jen's situation were mentioned to William Thompson, perhaps he would discuss how her work might be affected by being involved with an outside consultant. I was up first the next morning. Although I usually made coffee for Jen before leaving for work, I skipped that courtesy. She said good morning, but I didn't return her greeting. Don't do this, was all I said before leaving the house without our usual goodbye kiss. I'm sure she noticed the coldness in my actions. My plan was to speak with William Thompson. I had met him several times over the years at Fort Wayne Chamber of Commerce events and community fundraisers. He seemed like a reasonable man, straightforward and practical despite his success. Given the personal nature of what I wanted to discuss, I hoped he could talk to Jen about the potential consequences of her plans. I wasn't a business expert, but I thought Thompson Properties wouldn't want workplace complications that might affect their reputation in Fort Wayne's tight-knit business community. Mid-morning on Friday, I drove downtown to the Thompson Properties office on West Berry Street. The Victorian house had been beautifully converted, with the main floor serving as reception and meeting areas, and Thompson's office upstairs along with a small conference room. The main reception area was warm and inviting, with original hardwood floors and period fixtures mixed with modern real estate displays. Awards from the Fort Wayne Board of Realtors and community service plaques adorned the walls. I'd been here a couple of times for client meetings when Jen was showing us investment properties. Managing the front desk was Rachel Parker. I knew Rachel through several community events over the years. She was active in the United Way and the Fort Wayne Philharmonic fundraisers. She was probably the most exceptionally pleasant person at the real estate office, always smiling and truly interested in people. Rachel was about 40, with auburn hair styled in a practical bob. She dressed professionally but comfortably, more like a trusted family friend than a corporate gatekeeper. Her warmth made even business meetings feel welcoming. Rachel recognized me immediately as I walked through the front door. She smiled and stood up to greet me. "Michael, what a nice surprise. Are you and Jen looking at more property?" she asked with sincere interest. "Actually, I need to speak with Mr. Thompson. It's important and personal. I just need a few minutes of his time." She could read the seriousness in my expression. "It has to do with Jennifer, doesn't it?" Rachel asked perceptively. I liked Rachel and didn't want to burden her with my marital problems. "Maybe," was all I said. Rachel glanced at the appointment book on her desk. "Mr. Thompson just finished a client meeting. He has about 30 minutes before he leaves for a property showing. Let me see if he can spare a few minutes for you." She picked up the phone and spoke quietly, then nodded to me. "He'll see you now. You know the way upstairs." I climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor and knocked on Thompson's office door. "Come in, Michael," I heard him call. I found myself in a comfortable office that still retained much of the home's original character. Thompson stood behind a modest desk that faced 2 chairs for visitors. Behind him, large windows looked out over the neighborhood. His real estate license and community service awards were displayed on the walls, but the overall feeling was more like a family den than a corporate office. Thompson was a man in his early 60s, with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone who'd built his business through relationships rather than aggressive sales tactics. He approached me with an extended hand. "Michael, good to see you. How's the toy business? I heard you landed that contract with the educational toy distributor in Indianapolis." "Going well, thanks," I answered, though without much enthusiasm. "Well, Rachel said you needed to speak with me about something important. What's on your mind?" Suddenly I had doubts about what I wanted to discuss, but I began explaining what I thought I wanted to tell him. "I'm sorry to be coming to you with this, Mr. Thompson, and I feel awkward about it. The point is, my wife Jennifer has informed me that she intends to spend Saturday evening with the development consultant who's been working on the Aboit project. She's insisting on this arrangement, and I cannot dissuade her." Thompson was a shrewd businessman who'd navigated small-town politics for decades. "And you want me to intervene somehow? Perhaps talk to Jennifer or the consultant?" "That was my original thought when I walked into your office, Mr. Thompson, but I've changed my mind. This is my problem, and I need to solve it myself without burdening anyone else." "I appreciate your discretion, Michael. These situations can be delicate, especially in a community like Fort Wayne where business and personal relationships often overlap. Jennifer is a good agent, reliable and honest with clients. I'd hate to see anything complicate her work here." "Yes, sir," was all I could say. Thompson leaned back in his chair. In 30 years of business, I've learned that workplace relationships can create complications, especially with outside consultants who don't have to live with the long-term consequences. I've been thinking we should have clearer guidelines about these situations, but that's something for the future. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Thompson. I'm truly sorry I came to you with this. This is my problem, and I can handle it myself." I turned and left, heading back downstairs where Rachel was waiting. "How did it go?" she asked. "I shouldn't have brought this problem to Mr. Thompson. I feel foolish," I replied. Then I asked if I could sit in the reception area for a few minutes to collect my thoughts. "Of course you can. Let me get you some coffee. You look like you could use it." I sat in one of the comfortable chairs near the window, feeling like I was out of options. I couldn't stop Jen from going on her overnight encounter with this consultant. I put my head in my hands and began feeling sorry for myself. Then I heard Rachel say, "It's almost lunchtime. Why don't we go get something to eat? Sometimes it helps to talk things through." I thought spending time with Rachel would be truly helpful. She put a sign on her desk indicating she'd be back in an hour, then took my arm, and we walked to Club Soda, a quiet restaurant she particularly enjoyed on West Main Street. We started with iced tea, and before we ordered, Rachel said she wanted to know what was really bothering me. I told her the whole story. We ordered lunch and talked while I picked at my Caesar salad and Rachel enjoyed her chicken salad sandwich. After the meal, we ordered coffee. We were both quiet until Rachel said something unexpected. "Did you know my late husband was a small business owner like you?" I knew she was a widow and that her husband had died several years ago, but I didn't know much about him. Yes, he owned Parker Electronics, that little repair shop that used to be on Calhoun Street. I worked with him there for 15 years before he passed away. We built that business together from nothing. I remembered the shop. It had been a fixture downtown for years. Tom died of a heart attack 6 years ago, right there in the shop while he was working on a customer's television. He was only 45. Rachel was emotional talking about her late husband. "He was always my partner in everything," she said. "Maybe that's why I never remarried. It's hard to imagine starting over with someone else." She continued, "But the point of my story is that Tom often talked about problem-solving in business. He had this philosophy about giving customers options. He'd say, when someone brings you a broken TV, don't just tell them what's wrong with it. Give them choices, repair it, upgrade to something better, or help them understand why replacement might be smarter. Structure the choices so that no matter what they pick, they feel good about their decision." He used to say the same thing about any difficult situation. Give people choices, but make sure you can live with any choice they make. Rachel's insight struck me, though I wasn't sure I understood how to apply it. "Are we still talking about Jen's plans?" I asked. Rachel looked at me directly and said, "Give her choices, Michael, but structure them so that no matter what she chooses, you can live with the outcome." At that moment, Rachel reached across the table and briefly took my hand. "You're a good man facing a difficult situation. You'll figure out the right thing to do." After lunch with Rachel, I returned to work but stayed late because I didn't want to spend the evening with Jen. I even stopped by the Old Crown Brewing Company on Harrison Street to have a few beers with some business colleagues. When I arrived home at 10 p.m., Jen was waiting for me in the kitchen. "You didn't even call to say you'd be late. I worked so hard to make us a nice dinner. It's in the refrigerator if you want something to eat. I was hoping maybe you'd come back to our bedroom tonight." Then she noticed I'd been drinking. "You've been drinking," she observed. "I stayed late because I didn't want to deal with you tonight, and I had a few beers to help me forget about what you're planning to do tomorrow night. Now I'm tired and going to bed. Don't worry about tomorrow night, Michael. It will be over and in the past before you know it. We'll be the same as always." I ignored her and went straight to the guest room, closed the door, and collapsed on the bed. Surprisingly, I woke up early the next morning. After coffee and toast, I started my weekend routine. Cutting the grass, pulling weeds, washing both cars in the driveway. When I came back inside, Jen was getting ready to leave. "I'm going to Headline Salon for the full treatment, then getting my nails done at the place in Glenbrook Square," she announced. "I'll see you in 3 or 4 hours." I just poured another cup of coffee and watched her leave without saying a word. Before she reached the door, I said, "Don't do this, Jen. This won't end well." I showered, got dressed, and spent time at Menards and Meijer, taking care of weekend errands. When Jen returned in the early afternoon, it was obvious she had prepared extensively for her evening. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo. Her fingernails and toenails were perfectly manicured in deep red. But I had been busy too. Jen looked around as she passed through the living room and family room, then stopped and called me into the kitchen. "Michael, why is the area rug rolled up and the coffee table pushed against the wall?" I looked toward the living room and said, "I created space for dancing. I also moved the sofa closer to the fireplace." "Why are you doing this?" Jen asked. "I'm doing this for you. I'm going to convince you to stay home tonight and spend a romantic evening with me instead. Come to the kitchen. Let me show you what I have planned." As Jen followed me into the dining room, I pointed out that the table was set for 2 with our finest china and crystal, complemented by our silver flatware. There was a large bouquet of roses in the center with candles on either side to create an intimate atmosphere. The table was set like an upscale restaurant. 2 forks to the left of each plate, knife and spoons to the right, dessert spoon placed horizontally above the plate, crystal water glass at each setting. I know what you're trying to do, Michael, but it won't work. You know I have plans for this evening, Jen said. I know your plans, but you can always change them when something better comes along. Would you rather disappoint me or your consultant? Please, Michael, don't do this to yourself. Let me try. After dinner, I'll serve dessert vanilla ice cream with a shot of crème de menthe, then coffee with your choice of liqueur. For music, I chose that jazz collection we bought at the Johnny Appleseed Festival. Perfect for slow, intimate dancing. Of course, we'll have a fire in the fireplace. Michael, I need to get ready. I bought a new dress for this evening, and I don't want to be late. She disappeared upstairs to the master bedroom. When I heard the shower start, I went upstairs and changed into black slacks, a black dress shirt, and my best shoes. A full suit would be too formal for dinner at home. When Jen reappeared downstairs, she looked stunning. It was a classic little black dress with a sophisticated neckline that was sophisticated rather than revealing. The dress reached just above her knees, and she wore black heels with modest height. She had chosen a simple pearl necklace and matching earrings. How do I look? She asked. I was frustrated but maintained restraint and an almost cheerful demeanor. You look beautiful, like you're ready for a special evening. It would be nice to know you dressed like that for me instead of him. It is a special occasion, and I want to look good. I'll dress like this for you another time. Just then, I heard one of my favorite slow songs beginning to play on the sound system. I turned up the volume slightly and said, "Can I ask you for one dance before you go?" Jen seemed reluctant at first, but then said, "Of course." I walked over and took her in my arms. We danced as we always did, close and comfortable. I enjoyed feeling her nearness. "You're wearing my favorite cologne," she said. "English leather," I replied. Toward the end of the song, I began giving her gentle kisses along her cheek. She seemed to enjoy it and relaxed in my arms. I thought maybe I could change her mind. I let go of her right hand and moved my hand to her shoulder, then leaned down to kiss her neck softly. She tensed immediately. "No, Michael, don't do this. You know I'm leaving. We can do this another time. It's not too late to change your mind." "I'm not going to change my mind, Michael. I'm keeping my plans, and I don't want you to make this harder." "Don't worry, Jen. I won't interfere anymore. I see you've made your decision and it's final. However, there are 2 things I want you to do before you walk out that door." Jen looked at me suspiciously. "First, I want you to see what the dining room looks like with the candles lit and the lights dimmed. I want you to remember how romantic it looks when you leave." I lit the candles and dimmed the lights. "We can have a romantic dinner next week, Michael." I walked up to her and took her left hand in mine. I removed her wedding ring and engagement ring from her finger. "I don't want you with him while wearing the rings I gave you on our engagement day and wedding day." Jen looked concerned as I placed her rings, along with my wedding ring, on the small table in the hallway. She looked embarrassed but only said, "Okay." As Jen turned to get her wrap and purse, the doorbell rang. We could see a silhouette through the frosted glass of the front door. Who could that be at this time? She wondered. Since she was closer to the door, she opened it. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" I walked around Jen and extended my hand to help Rachel into the hallway. Jen stared at Rachel's outfit, something completely different from the conservative professional image she was accustomed to seeing at the office. Rachel wore a sophisticated burgundy cocktail dress that was tastefully cut with a flattering neckline, knee-length with a classic style. Her auburn hair was styled beautifully, and she wore understated but refined jewelry. She didn't just look good. She looked radiant. "Michael invited me for dinner when he lit the candles," Rachel said matter-of-factly. "He promised me candlelit dining, slow dancing to romantic music, cozy conversation by the fireplace, and a wonderful evening together. What woman could say no to such an invitation?" "You look so different from the office," Jen said involuntarily. I like to dress appropriately for special occasions, Rachel replied. She then added, and you look beautiful too. That's a lovely dress. David will certainly appreciate it. David? You know about David? Of course, David Matthews, Rachel replied. Most people around the office know about him. Most people? Jen asked, clearly surprised. Well, it's a small office, Jennifer. David's been working closely with our team for 6 months. The way you two interact during project meetings hasn't exactly gone unnoticed. Plus, Fort Wayne's real estate community is pretty tight-knit. People talk. How could they know? We tried to be so discreet. Discreet, Rachel said gently. From the moment David arrived from Chicago, it was obvious he was interested in you. Your response to his attention was pretty clear too. You began staying late for project meetings, taking longer lunch breaks on days when he was in the office, and dressing more carefully on days when you knew he'd be around. Then there were all those site visits to the Aboit development that only required one agent. In a small office like ours, these things don't go unnoticed. I had no idea I was so obvious, Jen said quietly. It was supposed to be just professional collaboration. Then I became genuinely interested in David. Finally, we admitted to each other that we had feelings and wanted to be together, at least once. Well, now you can, I said. I lifted Jen's wrap and placed it over her shoulders, then opened the door for her. Don't come back until tomorrow morning. I gently guided her toward the front porch. Michael, I never intended for things to get this complicated. I gave you every chance to decide to stay home with me, but you chose to spend the evening with David. I hope you enjoy the choice you made. My last words to Jen before closing the door were, have a wonderful time tonight. I'm sure I will. Jen stood on the porch for a minute or two before walking to her car parked in our driveway. I heard her drive away. I felt sad that I couldn't convince her to give up her plans and stay with me. Things would never be the same again. Rachel noticed my expression and the sadness in my eyes. I can't imagine how you feel, Michael, but remember what I said. No matter what choice Jen makes, you can live with the outcome. With those words, she stepped closer and gently touched my face. We embraced, and she kissed me softly. I responded naturally. I put my arms around her and pulled her closer. Our kiss became deeper and more meaningful as we held each other. We were both breathing deeply when Rachel pulled back slightly and said, "Let's have dinner." I told her dinner wasn't quite ready, but she could help if she wanted. In the kitchen, I pointed to 3 open bottles of wine, a light Chardonnay, a rose, and a rich Cabernet. She chose the Chardonnay. After pouring her wine and letting her taste it, I put an apron on her and, standing behind her, tied it securely. After a quick kiss, she laughed and asked what she could do to help. I prepared bacon earlier, I said. I need you to cut it into small pieces and mix it with the chopped lettuce. Then cut the avocado into cubes and add them. While Rachel worked on this and sipped her wine, I began feeling uncertain. I was standing next to this wonderful woman, and suddenly I felt inadequate. Compared to me, who had only been intimate with one woman my entire life, she probably had much more experience with relationships over the years. I walked up behind her and put my hands on her waist. I've never been with anyone but Jen. It makes me worry that I won't be as good as the men you've been with before. Rachel leaned back against me. I'm not worried, Michael. Just be yourself with me, and we'll see where it leads. If I want something different, I'll tell you. If you want something from me, just ask. By the way, she added with a warm smile, I value authentic affection and tenderness above all else. I kissed the back of her head. Thank you. You have a way of making a man feel confident. The salad is ready, she said, taking the bowl to the dining room. I helped her to her seat and took my place at the head of the table. Before we started dinner, I refilled our wine glasses and we made a toast. Here's to an unforgettable evening together, she said. I couldn't improve on that sentiment, I replied. Dinner proceeded beautifully. Even though I had to get up between courses to serve the next dish, Rachel made everything feel natural and enjoyable. She complimented the meal and said it was better than anything she'd had at the Canterbury Green Country Club. When we finished dessert, I told Rachel to relax in the living room while I cleared the table. Once the dining room was restored to perfection, I joined her. Rachel was swaying gently to the soft jazz music from the stereo. When I approached, she moved into a dance position, and we enjoyed the music together. "This is so romantic, Michael. I'm having such a wonderful time," she said. "Me too," I replied. "You should know that I haven't been in a relationship in a long time, and I haven't been with many people. But I care about you very much. And when we part, I want us to remain close friends." It didn't take long before we stopped dancing and simply held each other. My arms were around her waist, and hers were around my neck. We pressed close, and I was very aware of her warmth and softness. I'm sure she was equally aware of my response to her nearness. I leaned back enough to kiss her neck and throat gently. Rachel tilted her head back to allow me better access. When our connection began to intensify, Rachel stepped back softly. "Give me a few minutes to change into something more comfortable, and then we can sit by the fireplace and get cozy. You can change too if you'd like." I took a few minutes to change into comfortable silk pajamas and a matching shirt. I poured myself coffee with a splash of Irish cream, then sat on the sofa to wait for Rachel. A few minutes later, I heard Rachel behind me. Before I could turn around, she wrapped her arms around the back of the sofa and kissed my neck gently. I turned to see her standing behind the sofa, wearing an elegant black silk robe that was loosely tied. Her hair was down, flowing softly around her shoulders. I took her hand and helped her around to sit beside me. She was so beautiful that I couldn't help but kiss her. At first, it was tender and sweet, but then our connection deepened into something more passionate and meaningful. We spent the evening together by the fireplace, talking quietly and enjoying each other's company. The connection between us felt natural and right, a comfort I hadn't expected to find on such a difficult night. We shared stories about our lives, our losses, and our hopes, creating an intimacy that transcended the physical. When morning came, we both understood that our time together was special but also finite. We had breakfast together, comfortable in each other's presence, but aware that this was a unique moment in both our lives. "Would you like to go to Sunday brunch?" I offered. Rachel quickly agreed, and I took her to Café Janelle on West Jefferson Boulevard, a quiet place known for their excellent Sunday brunch. When I returned home around noon, I noticed Jen's car in the garage. I entered through the side door and walked through the kitchen into the dining room. There was a fresh pot of coffee on the counter, so I poured myself a cup. I found Jen sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for me with a cup in front of her. She looked serious and deflated. Meanwhile, I felt relaxed and wore the expression of someone who'd had a truly meaningful evening. I decided to address the situation directly. "Well, how was your evening?" "It was fine," she replied quietly. "How was yours?" I felt I should be honest. "It was one of the most wonderful evenings I've spent with anyone." Rachel was incredibly warm and caring, and we had a beautiful time together. I saw Jen lower her head, and I noticed a tear roll down her cheek. I felt terrible for being so direct, but I wanted to be truthful. "It was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life," she said softly. "What happened? Wasn't David the romantic partner you expected?" "It wasn't David," Jen said with frustration. "It was me. I couldn't stop thinking about you and Rachel and what you were doing. She looked so beautiful and elegant. I knew you'd have a much better time with her than I was having with David. He tried to be romantic and wanted to do everything he could to make sure we had a special evening, but I kept thinking about you and Rachel. I started drinking wine at the hotel bar before we even sat down for dinner. During dinner at Ristorante Veneto, I just picked at my food. I'd lost my appetite. But I continued drinking wine and finished most of the bottle myself. David tried to get me to stop drinking by taking me to the hotel lounge to dance, but by then I was nearly drunk and unsteady. I wasn't good company, and he was getting frustrated. So he suggested we go to his room at the Hilton. In the room, David tried to be romantic, but I just wasn't present emotionally. I felt nothing, no excitement, no passion, nothing. He sensed my complete lack of interest, and afterward he said that was the most disappointing experience he'd ever had. "What's wrong with you?" he asked. You wanted this as much as I did, and now you're acting like you don't want to be here." Then he got dressed and said, "I can't believe I spent so much time and effort trying to win you over, and it ended like this. I've wanted to be with you since the day I arrived in Fort Wayne. Stay here if you want. I'm going to the bar to find better company." As soon as he left, I just cried myself to sleep. When I woke up, the sun was shining and it was almost noon. I thought you'd be home alone by then, so I showered, got dressed, and left the hotel. When I came home, you weren't here. Rachel and I went to brunch and she went home from there. Since I had such a meaningful evening, I'm somewhat sorry your night was such a disappointment, but not very sorry. I'm so sorry, Michael, that I ever got involved with David. I understand now that he just wanted to be with me physically. He didn't really care about me as a person. Well, maybe you'll have better luck next time, I said with mild sarcasm. No, Michael. I will never do this again. Never. I want to go back to how we were when we were exclusive. I want to be monogamous again. I want to put this behind us and be happy together. Just you and me forever. I promised that if you didn't interfere with my plans, I would become the best wife in the world. I meant it, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. Not so fast, Jen, I said firmly. You spent the last 6 months in an emotional relationship with David, and the last 2 months planning how you two could be together. Now, since it didn't work out for you, you want to go back to the way things were before. That's not going to happen. I'm not sure I want to stay married to you. You hurt me more than I can express. You betrayed our marriage, you humiliated me, and you wanted me to just accept your plans as if they meant nothing. That won't work. For the next year, I'm going to give myself some freedom. Once a month, I will allow myself to go on a date with any woman I choose to spend time with. If I develop a relationship, then so be it. At the end of the year, I'll reconsider our marriage. If it still doesn't work for me, I'll file for divorce. If I'm happy with the arrangement, then I'll consider becoming exclusive again. You'll have this year to prove to me that you're worth keeping. You can accept these conditions or not. If you don't accept them, I'll start divorce proceedings on Monday. Let me know what you decide. I love you, Michael, Jen began. But I took you for granted. I know that now. It will hurt me terribly to know that you're spending time with other women, just like it hurt you last night. However, the last thing in the world I want is a divorce. It would destroy me to lose you. Therefore, I'll agree to your terms, and I'll keep my promise to be the best wife in the world, so that at the end of the year, you'll know without doubt that you want us to stay together. Then it's decided. I didn't know if I would actually be dating other women over the next 12 months, but I would certainly be open to it if the right opportunity presented itself. I'll be working in the yard and running some errands for the rest of the day. If you don't mind cleaning up last night's dishes and tidying the house, I'll take you to Texas Roadhouse this evening and we can share a meal. This suggestion was my way of trying to normalize our situation. In the future, I didn't want any ongoing tension between us when my probationary year began. After a few weeks, things were progressing well. Jen was an attentive wife, and it seemed sincere rather than forced. Our meals had improved significantly, especially dinner. Each evening included a glass of wine. The meal typically consisted of a small salad or cup of soup, followed by a modest appetizer, then an entree like a 6-ounce steak with potatoes or rice and vegetables. She even added small desserts after dinner. After dinner, Jen washed the dishes while I helped by clearing the table and putting away leftovers. One evening while we were having dinner, Jen said very casually, "I talked to Rachel today." I tried not to show surprise and replied, "Oh? What about? You, me, and her. She asked me to lunch and took me to Club Soda, the same place where she took you, I imagine." I thought this was probably correct. Over wine and salad, I asked her directly if she was going to try to take you away from me. She laughed and said, "No way. Michael and I had one special evening together, and now we're good friends. We'll never be together like that again." He was deeply hurt and disappointed by your actions. I think he's still working through that disappointment. I told Rachel I'm so ashamed of what I did to Michael and to our marriage. I know I can't undo this, but I've promised to be a much better wife than I was in the past. I intend to keep this promise and hope he responds positively. I told Rachel about your plan to date other women once a month and then reevaluate our marriage at the end of the year. She asked me what I was going to do about it. I told her I'll try to accept it, but it will be difficult. I'm sure I'll have some very hard nights while you're out on dates. She asked if I thought you would actually become intimate with other women. I said that, in my opinion, it's possible, maybe not every month, but from time to time. Maybe you can do something about it, Rachel suggested. What? I asked her. Give him choices, but make staying home with you so attractive that he turns down the date in favor of a special evening with his wife, she proposed. I told Rachel I would try that approach. So look forward to it, Jen concluded. If that's your plan, I could arrange a test date just to see what you come up with. A few weeks later, when I walked into the Thompson Properties office, I had a big smile on my face. Of course, Rachel was at her desk managing the front office. When she saw me, she stood up and came around to greet me warmly. Nice to see you again, Michael. I was expecting you, or rather, Mr. Thompson was expecting you, she said, giving me a brief, friendly hug. Do you know what Mr. Thompson wants to see me about? I asked. Of course I do, she replied with a knowing smile. I know everything that happens here. However, Mr. Thompson will tell you himself. Rachel returned to her desk and picked up the phone to announce my arrival. Thompson told her to send me up. I climbed the narrow staircase to his office and knocked. Come in, Michael, I heard him call. From behind his desk, Thompson stood up and gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. Michael, good to see you again. Please have a seat. I asked you here for 2 reasons, both related to you and the situation we discussed, so I wanted you to know about them. First, I wanted you to know that I've been thinking about our conversation regarding workplace relationships. I've decided to implement clearer guidelines for our office about relationships between our agents and outside consultants. It's not a policy aimed at Jennifer specifically, but rather a general guideline to prevent future complications. I have a draft copy if you'd like to review it. I thank Thompson for his thoughtfulness and the problem I had mentioned earlier. Without getting too personal, Michael, Thompson continued, how are things at home? I sincerely hope you and Jennifer are working things out. He continued, I've observed Jennifer at work over the past few weeks, and she seems more focused and content. I didn't bring up our conversation. I simply noticed that she seems to be in a better place professionally. I didn't want to go into detail about the current state of affairs between Jen and me, so I simply said, things are improving gradually, and I expect we'll work through this. I'm glad to hear that, Thompson replied. The other reason I wanted to talk to you is that I wanted you to know about a conversation I had with David Matthews before he returned to Chicago. I didn't go into personal details, but I did make it clear that his conduct during his time here was noted, and that I would be providing feedback to his firm about both his professional work and his overall judgment. Thompson leaned back in his chair. I also want you to know that I've decided we won't be using outside consultants for future development projects unless absolutely necessary. We'll handle our residential projects with our own team, which should prevent similar situations from arising. This doesn't fully address what happened to you and Jennifer, but it ensures that our workplace maintains appropriate professional boundaries going forward. This is what I can do for you, Michael. I hope you feel that the situation has been handled appropriately. I thanked Thompson for his consideration and left his office. I was deep in thought when I realized Rachel was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. How do you feel about it? She asked. I'm quite satisfied with how everything worked out and how it's developing. I owe you a lot for being my friend through all of this. Thank you. Don't forget, Michael, she said, touching my arm gently. I learned a lot from this experience too. I truly cared about you during our time together, and I'm glad I could help you through a difficult situation. And I care about you too, I replied. As I drove home through the familiar streets of Fort Wayne, I reflected on how the crisis that could have destroyed my marriage had instead taught us both valuable lessons about taking each other for granted. Jen was indeed becoming a more attentive and appreciative wife, and I was learning not to assume that a good marriage maintains itself without effort. The year ahead would test both our commitment and our capacity for forgiveness. But for the first time since that devastating Wednesday evening, I felt cautiously optimistic about our future together. Time would tell whether the choice Jen made that Saturday night would ultimately strengthen our marriage or whether my response would lead us in a different direction entirely. Either way, we were both finally being honest about what we wanted and what we were willing to do to get it. Whatever the future held, at least we were no longer pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. And perhaps, I thought as I walked toward our front door, that honesty was the most important choice of all. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.